What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? This your boy, Light Luciferian Prince, coming at you with the next segment of my series, which has to deal with understanding contracts and corporations. In the previous video, I outlined the general basis for what the present situation is in the United States and what most people will be dealing with in their near coming future. But before I proceed, I just wanted to give more insight into the general consensus of what contracts and the interaction with corporations really is. But before I proceed, I also want to say that this does not constitute legal advice. The sole information is for informational and educational purposes only. For the mature and for the more so financially literate and for the commercially literate community of people who know what contracts are and how they deal with corporations and how they deal with government interaction and how they deal with any entity. One thing I must emphasize before I proceed is the simple fact that, yes, everything we do outside of our personal self is a contract. And in order for us to better understand it, to keep ourselves from being indemnified by the consequence of the contract, we must understand what a contract really is and what the implied purposes really are. Now, in regards to this, further, I'm going to say that in regards to documentations I read, because of abuses yesteryear, I don't share them per se on the YouTube community because people use them for their own selfish purposes because they lack creativity and they obviously need to find a fucking job. Long story short, let me read this from an undisclosed source and from the facts, not my conjecture. I'm reading this from the undisclosed source. Understanding contracts and corporations. It says, my new motto, it says, no more. Catch the double meaning. It is time to understand what is really going on, open our eyes, and take back what rightfully belongs to you. The best way to do that is to hit them where it hurts, their financial statements. What is the most effective way you can make others change? Change your behavior towards them. If you want a child to stop being mean, you simply tell a child that until he plays nicely, you won't play with him anymore. If that child needs you, he will quickly change his ways. So we tell the police departments, county sheriff's officers, states, and the feds that they aren't playing by the rules of full disclosure, and we tell them that we won't play with them anymore. Now, when they change toward us, we still won't play with them because they are not cute little children. They are giant corporations that have nothing to do with lawful government. I'll read that again. They are giant corporations that have nothing to do with lawful government. They are giant corporations that have nothing to do with lawful government. And that is the point. America hasn't been a sovereign nation with lawful government in more than a century. Some even argue that there have never been lawful governments, as every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institution formed by his fellow men without his consent. Citation omitted. You must voluntarily give your consent to enter into contracts with these corporations. Notice, you must give your permission to enter into contracts with these corporations. Remember what Nietzsche wrote. Everything the state says is a lie. The state declares that they are a state, and this is true. But what is a state? The state of Texas is a sub-corporation of the United States, which is a corporation operating in commerce for profit. Now, some of you may ask, what is the difference if they operate as a corporation? Well, if they operate as a not-for-profit corporation and the stockholders were we the people, then that might be okay. But the fact is that every municipality, school district, public works, state, federal agency in the United States operate in commerce for a profit, and we call government. This actually is a corporation. A corporation that is not owned by the American people. Who makes the corporations responsible to the people? Do they watch themselves and never harm anyone? No. We had to go sue XYZ company because they knew that their tires were causing hundreds of deaths. But XYZ company didn't want to take responsibility because the bottom line was more important to them than human life. Once the system went into corporate status, it ceased to be government. Before becoming a corporation, no one ever had to register to vote. Now they say that everyone must be registered. This is not true. Try it sometime. Go down to vote a local election, which you are an inhabitant of the area but are not registered to vote. Tell them that it is your right to vote and that you do not have to be registered. Most likely, you will be allowed to vote, but they won't be very fond of you. You may be asking, doesn't registered simply mean signed up? Not quite. And this is where the plot thickens. When you register yourself, you record formally and exactly in a list of the like. Sounds innocent enough. Now, whom do you register with? The registrar. A registrar is an officer who has the custody and charge of keeping a registry of the register. Some examples of registries are registries of copyrights, deeds, wills, motor vehicles, and patents. They all have to do with property, not people. Other registries, such as registries of births, deaths, marriages, voter registrations, college registrations, and the like, all have to do with registering natural people. Now we're going to take a leap. What really is a registry? Generally, a registry applies to vessels in foreign commerce, whereas enrollment refers to coastwide navigation. When we register ourselves, we are saying that we are vessels in foreign commerce. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But that is why our names magically become capitalized on the various registrations, military, voting, birth certificates, death certificates, credit cards, etc. So this presumes that you have the understanding of the all capitalized fictional name versus proper names that only have the first letter capitalized. All vessels and ships have capitalized names. After registering, we are no longer dealt with as living souls, but as vessels operating in foreign commerce. What is the foreign commerce in which we're operating? Corporate commerce. Corporations cannot do business with natural beings, so we enter into their jurisdiction to do business with corporations when we become a vessel, because being a vessel is not a natural being. A vessel is a fiction, just as a corporation is a fiction, and now the two fictions are capable of transacting business. This all ties in with the flag we have been studying, those of us who know. Many people for the years have said that we are under maritime law and had us study maritime admiralty law for court. After all, the flag flown in all the courts is a military flag, and therefore the law is the advertising of the flag that by using what the courts are using is a military flag. So we have used as vessels because we registered as such. We are all vessels in the sea of commerce, and all courts are commercial courts for commercial fictions, not lawful common law courts for real people. Page 2. Okay. So we are a vessel. A vessel enters contracts with other vessels under the law of the flag. And we don't like the laws of their flag, the ones that they represent anyway. Then we do not contract with the vessel. The flag is your warning of what laws you will have the control of the contract. When you submit a contract, which in and of itself is a vessel, where is your flag? If your contract does not display a flag, then you are tacitly submitting to the laws of their flag. But you say there is no flag displayed on their contract, right? And wrong. There is no flag on the face of the contract, but there is a flag somewhere in their building or in front of their building. Every bank displays a United States flag, not an American flag. Most large corporations have the corporate United States flag displays the United States flag, not an American flag. Most large corporations have the corporate United States flag, the corporate United States flag, and their company's own corporate flags flying in front of their buildings. Have you ever wondered why big corporations have their own flags? They represent the codes, rules, and regulations that govern their contracts. Again, some of you will most likely ask, what is wrong with these flags? Good question, big answer. These flags are for corporations that abide by rules, codes, and regulations, not laws. Allow me to simply say this. Now what you must understand is that the government is no more than a private corporation. They have corporate codes, rules, and regulations that their corporate employees, just as the Big 500 company did in regards to their privatization of their personal flag. Since these codes are not laws, why does everyone follow them if they were law? Why does the corporate government think you must follow their codes, rules, and regulations? The reason is because you say that you are an employee. You state that you are an employee of the United States every time you file a Form 1040 with the IRS, and that form is only for employees. The IRS takes you on your word and treats you as an employee. The same is true for state taxation forms. You assert that you are a United States corporate employee every time you answer yes to the question, are you a United States citizen? How many times have we done that? Maybe 20 or more? Think of all the forms you have signed. to have asked that question. W-4s, I-9s, passport, driver's license, job applications, school registrations, credit card applications, Brady Bill forms. The list is endless. United States corporate citizens are subject to all the codes, rules, regulations of the company. If you claim national citizenship, please remember that America or your state is a nation to claim, which is lowercase America, not the United States Corporation. Personally, I'm an inhabitant of the planet Earth. The bottom line is that when dealing with corporations, we're dealing with contracts. As Erie Railroad versus Tompkins said in 1938. Just as I say this, in regards to your personal endeavors in your personal life, realize this. Everything is by contract. Even the courts are corporations and operate by contract. Everything is offered to you either verbally or in writing as a new offer of contract. Think about these examples by noticing how many times each day you get offers of contracts. A traffic ticket, a parking ticket, a code enforcement violation for your yard not being cut, a building permit, a jury duty notice, a notice or bill of property taxes, a bill to re-register your car, a notice of a bill for state or federal taxes, notice from your bank or credit card company that there will be higher charges for late payments, etc. The list is determined because everything between you and a corporation is an offer of contract. Now, here's the good news. The good news is that all contracts can be accepted or rejected within the 72-hour period under the Truth in Lending Act. You can reject an offer of contract. This includes rescinding contracts that you accepted for whatever reason you have changed your mind about accepting. What happens when a police officer pulls you over and gives you a ticket? Do you have a choice as to whether or not you're going to sign the ticket? Of course not. Do you even have the choice as to how you're even going to sign the ticket? That's something we'll get into later. Most of the time, in regards to people, their understanding in regards to contracts, most contracts are actually forced and implied contracts. These are not voluntarily things that we enter into ourselves, unless, of course, they're actually dealt with between two live entities. But that's another topic for another time. Staying on track, page 3. It simply says, it is decision time. If we start rejecting all offers of contract that demand money out of our pockets, we will hit them where it hurts. Eventually, they will have no choice but to shut their doors, as with any business whose sales have dropped off. The only difference between the corporate government and your local five and dime is that you actually get something in return for your money at your local five and dime. For those of you who still believe we have to support the government through taxation, I simply point to you Ronald Reagan's Great Commission Report of 1984. 100% of what's collected is absorbed solely by interest on the federal debt and federal transfer payments. In other words, all individual income tax revenues are gone before one nickel is spent on the service taxpayers expect from government. That's from Ronald Reagan's Great Commission Report of 1984. The country operates today on the same sources of revenue as it did in prior income tax duties or imposts on imported goods and excise taxes on domestic goods that are non-essential items. This is all the revenue required to run the government. The next standard objection in and of itself is a book in and of itself and requires a good deal of research to understand. But I want to briefly answer one more objection that most people of good moral character will raise in regards to the federal debt. That objection is, don't we have to pay our debts? If this were an honest debt that you and I incurred and I agreed to pay, then by all means the answer would be an overwhelming yes. However, that is not the case with the federal debt. The federal is the United States Corporation. Again, a privately held company that artificially created this outrageous debt and then made you and I believe we were responsible to pay their debts for them. The debt is what the corporate owners created and lent back to their subcorporations. It is not even a real debt. It's fraud, which coincidentally stands for Federal Reserve Accounting Unit Denominations. Wow. If that big 500 corporation, which I made reference to in regards to making their own private flag, came to you and said, hey, we need your help getting rid of our debt, you may feel a modicum of sympathy for the corporation, but would you pay their debts for them? No way. Then why are you paying the private company's artificial and fraudulent debt simply because they titled the corporation United States? The corporate government is nothing more than a pyramid scam leeching off the hard-working productive sector. Note my motto, no more. All definitions are from Black's Law Dictionary 6th edition. Now, what's the reality behind contracts? Most of the time, contracts are definitively extended to people, for the most part, by the extension of the court system, mostly because these are contracts that are mostly engaged in because under force, coercion, and duress. Force, coercion, and duress are the only ways that you can make law work. Law only works if it works by force. It can't work voluntarily because people, by their voluntary consent, won't usually interact with something. Most people they're not properly informed as to what the execution of these concepts really are. Now, is this an anti-government rant? No, this is facts. This is something that's based upon the system of law. This is based upon the system of their law. It's just more of a hidden concept. It's a concept that needs to be touched upon because most people get this mixed up. They intertwine so many different concepts into one concept, where that one concept is intertwined with other concepts that are often misleading, where they can never get to the root of the truth. So, getting to the root of the truth and leaving prejudices and biases aside, these are the legalistic facts. Now, what is the government trying to, or any entity that purports to be government, trying to extend to people? The principal obligation, also known as the primary obligation. Let's read into the definition of what principal obligation is. Principal obligation, an obligation that arises from the essential purpose of the transaction between the parties. Number 2, a fundamental contractual term imposing a requirement on a contracting party from which other obligations may arise, also termed principal obligation. Let's go into it. Obligation, in its popular sense, is merely a synonym for duty. Its legal sense, derived from Roman law, differs from this in several aspects. In the first place, obligations are merely a class of duties, namely those which are correlatives of rights in personam. An obligation is a vinculum juris, or a bond of legal necessity, which binds together two or more determined individuals. Secondly, the term obligatio is in law the name not merely of the duty, but also of the correlative right. It denotes the legal relation of the vinculum juris in its entirety, including the right of the one party, no less than the liability of the other. Looked at from one point of view, the person entitled to an obligation is a right. Looked at from one point of view of the person bound, it is a duty. An obligation, therefore, may be defined as a proprietary right in personam, or a duty which corresponds to such a right. John Salmon, Jurisprudence, Volume 460, Glanville L. Williams, edition 1947. What did that really say? If a contract is extended to you and you're a natural person, and that contract is extended to you and you're a natural person on behalf of an artificial entity, then in personam, you are now duty bound. You are now bound to the contract. It is simply adhesion. It is adhesion at best. It is a unilateral contract designed with the specific intent to extort money from the person who's signing. Let's go further in regards to the definition of artificial person. Artificial person, an entity such as a corporation created by law and given certain legal rights, duties of a human being, a being real or imaginary, who for the purpose of legal reasoning is treated more or less as a human being. An entity is a person for purposes of due process and equal protections clause, but is not a citizen for purposes of privileges and immunity clause in Article 4, Section 2 in the 14th Amendment. Now, this gets deeper, because now we just entered into the duality side of what the legal processes is in regards to what contracts and obligations are. Contracts and obligations are only entered into between corporate entities. They can never be dealt with in regards to actual live people, because that would make someone liable. And when the other party has to be responsible for the liability, then their purpose of extending the contract is null and void. Not saying that it's legitimized, not in any sense. The only time a contract can be enforced is if a crime actually took place between a person and property, meaning a live natural person, not a person such as an individual, partnership, trust, or corporation. That's false. That is a fraudulent, at best, executed contract behind legal theory. This is the truth. Now, let's go further. So far as the legal theory is concerned, a person is any being whom the law regards as capable of rights and duties. Any being that is so capable is a person, whether a human being or not. And no being that is not so capable is a person, even though he be a man. Persons are the substances of which rights and duties are the attributes. It is only in thus respect that persons possess juridical significance. And this is the exclusive point of view from which persons receive legal recognition. John Salmon, Jurisprudence 318. Now, people can start to really see the mirror image and the duality behind the process of what nationality and status is. Because if you don't look at it from a legal standpoint in its proper respect, you're never going to get down to the root of what status really is. You're not going to get down to the root of what contracts really are in regards to what status really is. Or even entering into contracts under an alternate status. Now, what am I saying all this for today? Because I know that most people today are getting ready to embark upon a path of, a new journey of sorts to redo and recreate their financial corporate lifestyle in regards to their public life. But this video, again, it's not anti-government. It's just informing you of your proper stance in regards to what that contract is, and you being given the full knowledge of what it is in regards to what you are as a natural person. To keep yourself out of the liability of receiving the damage from the opposite end of what a contract is. These things, whether or not, are fraudulent, and they are misleading at best, still have very significant damages in our entire existence. That's the thing that we need to start seeing. So these things are to be looked at in the proper respect of the light and what they are. Not these other channels that mystify you and say all these other things and waste your time for answers that you need immediately. Answers that you need immediately are informative. And informative information usually has to come in a correct, most likely, correct form than in the other form that most people have known on these mediums. But what people do is they often twist mystery, science fiction, and reality together to mystify people into a concept in which they have little to no understanding. So this is just to simplify it. It's just to give more of an understanding about what it is that we're really doing and what we're really embarking upon. This is the meat of today's society, is the information. Most people want just money. They want money. They think money is going to solve all problems. They think money is going to solve all their problems. Little do they know, you can get money, but if you don't have the knowledge, you can't keep it. And so the saying is true. A fool and their money are soon parted. But it never said anything about a wise person. Take that into strict consideration. Like and subscribe. Again, peace. Love y'all. And agents,